Hi all, welcome to CTPS Education. In this video, we'll see about Spring Aspect Oriented Programming, that is AOP concepts. We'll see some interview questions and answers in that. Let's start. What is AOP in Spring? AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. What is that means? In our application, apart from our business logic, we have some extra functionalities like logging, catching, right? So those functionalities we can separate in one aspect. So let's understand more about that. It addresses cross-cutting concerns, which are aspects that affects multiple parts of an application. So in simple words, it focuses on separating additional functionality like logging, security, catching, error handling from main business logic of our application. So what is the advantage means? It makes code more modular and reusable and maintainable. Okay, now let's understand what is a cross-cutting concern. Cross-cutting concern is common functionality that is present in multiple places of our code. So as we saw earlier, it is some common functionality. So it makes code duplicate and also the complexity will be increased and difficulty to maintain. Examples for this cross-cutting concerns are logging, security, catching, error handling and validation. AOP helps to manage these cross-cutting concerns. What are the available AOP implementations in Java? So we have some popular AOP implementations. What are them are Spring AOP, AspectJ, JBoss AOP. What are the key concepts of AOP? There are 4 key concepts. Let's see them. First one, aspect. It is a class that addresses a specific concern like logging, security. So we have the cross-cutting concerns, right? So those concerns can be added into a separate class. That class is called aspect here. Next, point cut. It is an expression of where to apply the aspect. For example, in our application, we can apply the aspect anywhere in our program. But we want to restrict that, right? So that can be done with the help of this point cut. So this is nothing but some kind of expression, and it refers to like only the specific methods or all methods in a particular class. Then join point. It is a specific point in the code where aspect can be applied. Example, method call. Point cut can be like even all the methods in a class or only specific method. So that condition is called point cut, whereas join point means that specific point. Okay. Next one, advice. Action taken by an aspect at the join point. This is very simple, like what we need to do by the aspect. Example, logging before the method call. Let's revise all the key concepts. First one, aspect. So it is a separate class what we are creating for the concern, and then point cut is the expression, and it denotes like which methods we want to apply the aspect, whereas join point is the specific point, and advice is the what action need to be done. Okay, now let's see how does Spring implement this cross-cutting concern, like how it's happening inside the Spring. Let's see that. Spring AOP implements aspect-oriented programming by creating proxies, that is wrappers around the target objects. For example, here we have the method call, right? So this method call will be like a wrapping. So it will create proxy and a wrapping around that actual method call. So these proxies intercept each method calls and apply additional logic defined in the aspect and calls the target methods. So that if we have implemented AOP in our application means first thing what it will intercept means only the AOP, that is the aspect class only will be called first, and it will be checking whatever advices if that is applicable or not. This allows decoupling and reusability of the code. How do you define an aspect in Spring? So we know like aspect means we have to create a separate class and annotate this class with @aspect annotation. Also we need to add @component annotation because we have to make the class as a Spring managed being. So @component annotation should be added. Basic syntax is create one separate class called logging aspect or something, whatever concern you have to create, and annotate that class with @aspect and @component. What is a point cut expression? It defines which join points, that is method, should be advised by an aspect. It is added in the bracket to select the business methods accordingly. Let's see the example for this. At before. So here value equal to, after execution we have added star star and inside that some brackets like dot dot is there, right? So this is kind of expression. So this expression is called the point cut expression. So here with this expression we are matching all the methods. Next we have at after value equal to execution of the specific class called my class. So here we have provided fully qualified name of that class dot star, that means like all the methods of this class is applicable with any number of arguments. Okay, so this means like matches all the methods in my class. So now you understood, right? Point cut expression is nothing but some kind of expression. It is just used to select which method for that advice should be applied. Okay. In this point cut expression, we have something like at before, at after, right? We'll see more about them in the next slide. What are the types of advices? Advices means we know like some action taken by the aspect. Like when that action should be happening. So based on that, these advices are classified. Okay, let's see them. At before. So this advice will execute before the join point. At after. It executes after the join point. At after returning. It executes after the join point returns successfully. We have one more thing, at after throwing. So this will execute after join point throw some exception. And then finally at around. This is a powerful advice, so it will wrap around the join point, allowing for some custom behavior. We'll see more about these advices with examples in the upcoming slide.
Let's see example for each type of advice. First one, at before. This will be executing before the method call. So inside at before we have value equal to the respective point cut expression. For example here all the methods of my class will be applied. Then we have created one method called before transaction advice. Inside this join point is there. Here we are logging it. So log.info, and inside this logging information is added plus join point dot get signature. So with the help of the join point we can get information about the actual method call. Okay, so at before will be executing before the actual method call. Next example is for at after. This will be executing after the actual method call. So inside at after annotation we have added the respective point cut expression and created one method called after transaction advice, and here also we are just logging it. Next at after returning. So this will be executing if the method is returning something successfully. Okay, so here we have value equal to the respective point cut expression, and also we have one more thing called returning. So inside this returning we are passing the value as transaction. For example here it is returning the transaction object. Okay, add the actual method advice, and after returning transaction advice, so inside this we have parameters called join point and then one more parameter called the transaction. So this is the returning object. So here also we can log, and also since we have the transaction object access, so just here we are printing it transaction dot get id. Okay, next one at after throwing. So this will be executing only if the actual method call throws some exception. So here throwing, like that one value will be added as extra here. So throwing equal to exception, the respective exception will be added. Okay, so here also we need to create the respective advice method after throwing a transaction advice, and inside this advice we have join point and then one more parameter called exception. So now we can log this info, and also we can access the exception message here. What is at around advice? It is a powerful type of advice that surrounds a join point. Why it is powerful? Let's understand next. This at around will be executed before the join point, that is the actual method call. Before that it will be executing, and then it will call the join point. It's a very important point, because the previous advices they don't have access to call that join point, but here with the help of proceeding the join point dot proceed method we can call the actual method. Then it executed after the join point target method. So That's why it is called surrounding a join point. So this at around will be executed before, and it will call the join point, and also it will be executed after the join point also. Then also it can handle the return values and then handle exception too. Also it can return or modify the original results. Even it can modify the input too. So it is very powerful type of advice. Example for this. So here also we have annotation at around. Inside this, the respective point cut expression, the advice method, around transaction advice. So inside this, the difference is proceeding join point, join point. Previous advices we have only the join point as parameter, right? So here we have proceeding join point. That is the major difference. Also here we are just logging it. And one more thing, here we need to call the method call with the help of this join point dot proceed. That means like proceeding join point dot proceed. So if we are not calling this, then the actual method call itself will not happen. So this is very important step. Also if needed, we can handle the exceptions by using try catch as here. Okay, try catch, and inside this we are just logging the error. Main points are in at around we have proceeding join point as parameter, and also with the help of that we can call the actual method call, and also we can even handle the exception by using try catch, and we can even modify the outputs. Proceeding join point, let's understand more about that. It is used in at around advice, and it represents a point in the execution flow. So it is also similar to join point only, but it has some extra features along with that. Okay, then it can control the execution flow like proceeding or even skipping the target method. Calls the target method from within an advice by using the proceed method. Also it can modify the input arguments. It can access information about the target methods. So the main points to be considered. What is the order of execution of the advice methods if all types of advices are there? Now you may get confused, right? Because we have all the advices in a similar way, like at after, returning. So we need to understand the order of their execution. So let's see that. First, the target method. Okay, that is the actual method call. So if we have at before, that will be executing before this actual method call. Then at after will be executing. So only if we have at before, at after, this is the flow. At before, target method, and then the at after will be executing. Also if we have at around means, then that will be given the first priority. So even at before the advice, the at around will be executing, and also even at after, this at around will be executing. So finally this input also will be at around only, the output also will be handled by at around only. So this, and we have two more advices left, right? Target method is returning successfully, then after returning, so if value is returning successfully, this advice will be called, and after that this at after advice will be called. And if exception occurs, at after throwing advice will be called. So after the target method, this at after throwing will be called, and then again at after will be called. So either at after returning or at after throwing will be called based on the value is success or it throws some exception.
Okay viewers, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. Support for more videos. Thank you.